Hi everybody, TJ Mack Vintage Cards and Nostalgia here. And in today's video I was originally planning on showing off my key cards from the baseball collection that I put together from 1956 to 1989, where I put 30 key cards from each year. I was going to put them all on a table in stacks and just kind of show in totality what that collection looks like. Still planning on doing that, but it was supposed to be this week. It's just been busy. We've had some weather around here and just work and other things going on in life that don't have the time to really set that up. But I still want to do a video today because I've always got some things that I want to share with the community. I just love being part of YouTube and just want to stay on the rhythm of getting my videos out each week and spending some time sharing with each of you. So I do have some new cards that I want to share that I've added to my collection recently. I want to start off here with these three 1965 Topps cards from hockey. These are not new additions, but they're three of the 65 Topps cards I have in my collection. I've recently added a fourth that I'm about to share. But this is just a beautiful set. You can see here on the top there, they got all the pucks aligned with the team name in different colors. Set before you, I think it's a good example of the colors in the set. And then down below, you have the black strip with the player's name in white, and then you got the position in different colors depending on the color and the backdrop of the card. And what's nice about these is that you have a different variety of shots. Here are some examples of some fuller body shots on the Rattel, and then you have some three-quarter shots on the Delvecchio and the Pierre Pilote. And then the one I'm going to show you is a headshot of Jean Beliveau. And just real happy and excited to add this card to my collection. I'm a collector of Beliveau. I don't have a ton of his cards, but I do try to get nice examples when I see them. This set here was an 128 card set. I believe it was marketed primarily in Canada. I'm sure some may have gotten to the United States, but at this time frame, hockey cards were predominantly issued in Canada. I know that Topps had a hockey headquarters in Canada where they would help with the designs of the cards and whatnot. And I think they did a nice job here with this particular issue. So it's not a big set at 128 cards. In PSA right now, there are 16,133 total graded, and that's about 126 per player. Now, if you look at it compared to baseball, there's 282,768 graded baseball cards, 598 in the 65 Topps set, and that's an average of 473 per player. So for the Beliveau, there's about 251 graded, 32 in a PSA 6, which this one is. Compare that to Hank Aaron, who I think's probably close to the equivalent of what Beliveau was in hockey. That's just how good a player he was, to put it in perspective. There's 5,623 Hank Aaron cards alone graded. So the Hank Aaron card in baseball, of course, it's far more popular than hockey, but you can just see there was a lot more baseball cards issued at that time than there were hockey cards, just to give you an idea of what's out there. So I'm going to turn the card over here so you can see the back. And here it's just like a grayish white color stock, and then you got black there mixed in with it. You have a puck there on the bottom, and then you would rub it and you'd get a little image that would appear. This one may have been rubbed or just may be very lightly coming through the card. I'm not sure, but either way, just a beautiful looking back there on the card as well as the front. And it's in the English and French translations because, again, these cards were sold in Canada. And it says right here even that it was printed in Canada on the bottom. So just a card that I'm really excited about adding to my collection. It's cost me about, just to give you an idea, I'll share prices when it, again, it's not bragging because these cards aren't like $1,000 cards or anything. It was probably about $85 I think I paid shipped for the card. Maybe a little more than that, but they don't come up that often at auction. As you can see, there's just not a lot of them out there of Beliveau available. And when they come up to auction, you want to act on it if it's a card you want to add to your collection. Now, the biggest cards in this set from a rookie standpoint would be the Phil Esposito, which is a pretty pricey card, as well as Jerry Cheever's rookie, who was a goalie for the Bruins, Eddie Giacomin, a goalie for the Rangers, and then later the Red Wings as well. And then also you have Yvon Cournoyer with the Montreal Canadiens, a key player in the Canadiens dynasties that went well into the 1970s. And then you also have, of course, Gordie Howe, the Beliveau, Bobby Hull, just a lot of good players in this small 128 card set. Now, the cards I got here, Pierre Palazzo, Hall of Famer. He was one of the best defensemen in the NHL, probably the best after Doug Harvey and before Bobby Orr came along. And then on the end there, you got Jean Rattel, who played for the Rangers and the Bruins. He's a Hall of Fame forward as well, a very popular player in Rangers history. And then in the center here, when I covered him up here with the Belleville, is Alex Delvecchio. He was on the line with Gordie Howe in the 1950s, and then he played with the Red Wings well into the 70s. So he had, I believe, a 24-year career with the Red Wings, and he is a Hall of Famer as well. Another card I was very excited to add, I just got it right after Christmas, was this 1954 Bowman Bob Lemon. Wasn't a card I was specifically seeking out, but I just saw it, and it really pictured it in my head complementing this Whitey Ford card perfectly. So you can see here, this Ford is one of my favorite cards of his, maybe my favorite card of his. You got in the background the Ballantine Ale sign, so this was taken in Yankee Stadium. And I believe the Bob Lemon is as well, because you can see a similar building in the background and a similar backdrop. And I just see these cards side by side because I can think of them, like the TV camera panning on them before a game where they're pitching against each other. You got Lemon there in the Indians away uniform, and Whitey Ford, of course, in the famed Yankee pinstripes. And you get to see the camera focusing on each of them. You got Bob Lemon rubbing the ball before the game, and then maybe Whitey Ford warming up. Just a really cool image that I just think these cards are meant to be next to each other. And Lemon was a tremendous pitcher. He had 7 20-win seasons. He got a little later start to his career at 25 years old because of the war. So he really came in the league in 1946 at 25 years old and won 20 games 7 times in just 13 seasons. So really a big superstar player of his era that maybe doesn't get enough credit today that he deserves. And I think pitchers in general in the 1950s don't really get the limelight that the hitters did. Unlike the 60s where you saw a lot of great pitching as the game skewed more towards the pitcher as the decade went on. So I just wanted to bring a little light to Bob Lemon, and I just wanted to show how these cards really complement one another. And when you're putting your collection together and you're piecing your cards, one of the things I like to do is just think of that. How are these cards going to fit in my collection and make my collection better? You know, just better for me as a collector, not for anybody else. And I think this Bob Lemon card does that. And another area where it's really a nice addition to my collection, I'm going to show you now. Now, this is a May 1953 Sport magazine cover from my father-in-law's magazine collection. And I haven't shown this one before, but I think this complements this card nicely. You have here him in the old, again, Cleveland Indians uniform with Chief Wahoo on the sleeve. It's the different imagery of Chief Wahoo than you see on the 54 Bowman. But nonetheless, just a card that complements the magazine cover nicely. And again, I just am happy to have Lemon in my collection because of that connection to my family with my father-in-law as well, and being such a big Indians fan. 54 was their big season, of course. Unfortunately, didn't work out where they won the World Series, but they did manage to overcome the Yankees for once and get to the World Series. So it's just nice to have this memory within my collection. I've had the 77 O-Pee-Chee Fidrych rookie card in my collection for a while, but I added recently, around the holidays again, this 1977 Topps Burt Jones. And I have Burt Jones rookie, which was in 74, as well as his 1976 Topps, which was his MVP season. But when I saw this 77 Topps pop up, it started off at an auction, but then had a buy it now of $13.99. I instantly did the buy it now because you just don't see this card pop up in graded form very often. And of course, if you're just buying one that's ungraded, you can get it fairly easily. But in graded form, it doesn't come up. Again, there's only 12 graded as a PSA 8 and 51 graded overall. And for better or worse, I'm a graded collector. That's just how I approach it. So I jumped on it and I wanted to add this card to my collection. And when I got this, I just envisioned this with my Mark Fidrych from 1977. Because if you go back to that time, these two players were so hot within their sports. The magazines of 1977, I never saw a player have more covers in 1977 than Burt Jones did. He was all over the magazines that year. And I'm a magazine collector, so I save him in my searches, and I just saw just the number of magazines, Football Digest, and then Sports Illustrated, and just all the different covers that he had from that year. A very popular player. And then, of course, those of us who are baseball fans know the story of Mark Fidrych. And where these two players go well together also is that they're expected to be stars for many years in their sport. We know Fidrych got the injury and was never the same again in spring training 1977. And then with Burt Jones, he had bad shoulder problems, and they just didn't have the type of surgery back then to repair him the way they were able to. And he was thought by those that watched him play to be one of the greatest pure talents ever, and he just succumbed to injuries. They just didn't have the technology at the time to fix him up the way they could today. So I just like having these two players side by side because it is just a remembrance of how popular players can be of their time, and it just may not carry over into later years because of things that were beyond their control. Last card I want to show today is this 1965 Philadelphia Sam Huff, and he's a Hall of Fame linebacker that starred really with the Giants. This is at the end of his career. This is his last card with the Washington Redskins. But normally I like the players in their uniform for the teams that they were known for, but when you have a player with an image like this, with that helmet and that huge face mask in front of him, it lines up nicely with these other three cards that I have here of Jack Youngblood, Mean Joe Green, and Lawrence Taylor. And you can see here how the face masks have changed a little bit over the years. And I just think it's just a nice snapshot into football history, and you can just see the differences in the equipment over time. That face mask that Sam Huff has on looks so big and clunky compared to LT's, which is still a big mask, but just looks a little more up to the times, I guess, versus the one that Huff has on. And I just like that type of imagery. And every time I see a card that has a football photo of the player from the vintage era that I collect with their helmet and face mask like this, I like to add those to my collection because I think they just look nice next to one another. And it helps, too, that these are four of the great defensive players of their time. And Sam Huff is a guy that's a little under the radar, I think, in my opinion, because he's someone that you don't hear as much nowadays. But if you go back to the 1950s, he was the first defensive player to ever be on the cover of Time magazine. Bobby Lane was the first football player, but Huff was the first defensive player. And that was because the defense was becoming more and more popular over that period, and the Giants had the best defense in the NFL at that time, and they were very popular, especially compared to their offense, which wasn't very good in New York at that time. So when I see this card, it just reminds me of that time frame where Huff started in the league, and I just love the image here on this card. So that's all I have today. Hope everybody has a great day, and we'll talk again soon.